An account of the hanging. July 11. This morning lumber was brought into the prison by the rebels, and near the gate a gallows erected for the purpose of executing the 6 condemned Yankees. At about 10 o'clock they were brought inside by Captain Wirtz and some guards, and delivered over to the police force. Captain Wirtz then said a few words about their having been tried by our own men, and for us to do as we choose with them, that he washed his hands of the whole matter, or words to that effect. I could not catch the exact language, being some little distance away. I have learned by inquiry their names, which are as follows: John Sarsfield, 144th New York, William Collins, alias Mosby, Company D, 88th Pennsylvania, Charles Curtis, Battery A, 5th Rhode Island Artillery, Pat Delaney, Company E, 83rd Pennsylvania, A. Moon, U.S. Navy, and W. R. Rickson of the U.S. Navy. After Wirtz made his speech, he withdrew his guards, leaving the condemned at the mercy of 28,000 enraged prisoners, who had all been more or less wronged by these men.
Prisoners, I return these men to you as good as I got them. You have tried them yourselves and found them guilty. I have had nothing to do with it. Do with them as you like, and may God have mercy on you and on them. Company! About! Face! Forward! March!
My God, you don't mean to really hang us up there? That's about the size of it.
Their hands were tied behind them, and one by one they mounted the scaffold. Curtis, who was last, a big, stout fellow, managed to get his hands loose and broke away and ran through the crowd and down toward the swamp. It was yelled out that he had a knife in his hand, and so a path was made for him. He reached the swamp and plunged in, trying to get over on the other side, presumably among his friends. It being very warm, he overexerted himself, and when in the middle or thereabouts, collapsed and could go no farther. The police started after him, waded in and helped him out. He pleaded for water, and it was given him, then led back to the scaffold and helped to mount up.
This is nothing. Keep your peckers up, boys. We'll have no weakness here. What? Did you think you were going to live forever?
All were given a chance to talk. Munn, a good-looking fellow in marine dress, said he came into the prison 4 months before, perfectly honest and as innocent of crime as any fellow in it. Starvation, with evil companions, had made him what he was. He spoke of his mother and sisters in New York, that he cared nothing as far as he himself was concerned, but the news that would be carried home to his people made him want to curse God he had ever been born. Delaney said he would rather be hung than live here as the most of them lived, on their allowance of rations. If allowed to steal, could get enough to eat, but as that was stopped, had rather hang. Bid all good-bye. Said his name was not Delaney, and that no one knew who he really was, therefore his friends would never know his fate, his Andersonville history dying with him. Curtis said he didn't care a blank, only hurry up and not be talking about it all day, making too much fuss over a very small matter. William Collins, alias Mosby, said he was innocent of murder and ought not to be hung. He had stolen blankets and rations to preserve his own life, and begged the crowd not to see him hung, as he had a wife and child at home, and for their sake to let him live. The excited crowd began to be impatient for the show to commence, as they termed it. Sarsfield made quite a speech. He had studied for a lawyer. At the outbreak of the rebellion he had enlisted and served 3 years in the army, been wounded in battle, furloughed home, wound healed up, promoted to first sergeant, and also commissioned. His commission as a lieutenant had arrived, but had not been mustered in when he was taken prisoner. Began by stealing parts of rations, gradually becoming hardened as he became familiar with the crimes practiced. Evil associates had helped him to go downhill, and here he was. The other did not care to say anything.
This is nothing, boys. Doesn't matter a damn. Doesn't matter at all. Let's get this done right. Jim.
Don't you worry about that.
While the men were talking, they were interrupted by all kinds of questions and charges made by the crowd, such as, "Don't lay it on too thick, you villain!" "Get ready to jump off!" "Cut it short!" "You was the cause of so-and-so's death!" "Less talk and more hanging," and so on and so on. At about 11 o'clock they were all blindfolded, hands and feet tied, told to get ready, nooses adjusted, and the plank knocked from under. Mosby's rope broke, and he fell to the ground, with blood spurting from his ears, mouth, and nose. As they lifted him back to the swinging-off place, he revived and begged for his life, but no use, was soon dangling with the rest, and died very hard. Munn died easily, as also did Delaney. All the rest died hard, and particularly Sarsfield, who drew his knees nearly to his chin and then straightened them out with a jerk, the veins on his neck swelling out as if they would burst. It was an awful sight to see, still a necessity. Mosby, although he said he had never killed anyone, and I don't believe he ever did deliberately kill a man, such as stabbing or pounding a victim to death, yet he has walked up to a poor sick prisoner on a cold night and robbed him of blanket, or perhaps his rations, and, if necessary, using all the force necessary to do it. These things were the same as life to the sick man, for he would invariably die. The result has been that many have died from his robbing propensities. It was right that he should hang, and he did hang most beautifully, and Andersonville is the better off for it. None of the rest denied that they had killed men, and probably some had murdered dozens. It has been a good lesson. There are still bad ones in camp, but we have the strong arm of the law to keep them in check. All during the hanging scene the stockade was covered with rebels who were fearful a break would be made if the raiders should try and rescue them. Many citizens, too, were congregated on the outside in favorable positions for seeing. Artillery was pointed at us from all directions, ready to blow us all into eternity in short order. Wirtz stood on a high platform in plain sight of the execution and says we are a hard crowd to kill our own men. After hanging for half an hour or so, the 6 bodies were taken down and carried outside.